There are beliefs about yourself that feel like truth, but they were never yours to begin with. They came from the neighborhood you grew up in, the siblings you were compared to, the teachers who labeled you, the unspoken rules in your household that taught you what you were allowed to say, think, or become. This programming didn't start in your heart. It started in your mind. And the third house of your birth chart shows you exactly what kind of mental atmosphere shaped your inner dialogue before you even knew you had one. So grab your birth chart, find the sign or signs ruling your third house, and let's dive in.
Aries in the third house is about reprogramming the fear of being too much. With Aries ruling your third house, your earliest experiences of learning, speaking, and being heard were shaped by an environment where energy moved fast. Intensity was the norm, and assertiveness often decided who got to be listened to. You may have grown up in a home, school, or sibling dynamic where communication was loud, reactive, or filled with interruptions, where curiosity wasn't always nurtured, only quick answers and strong opinions, where sensitivity or indecision were seen as weakness, or where there was pressure to get to the point, speak up, or toughen up. This kind of atmosphere teaches you to associate communication with urgency or conflict, where speaking becomes a performance rather than an exchange. You might have learned to be on guard in conversations, preparing to argue, defend, or dominate, because it felt like that's what it took to be taken seriously. On the flip side, if you were surrounded by people with louder or more intense voices, you may have silenced your own, believing that unless you could match their fire, your thoughts didn't matter. Over time, this environment wires your mind to believe that speed, certainty, and power are requirements for being heard, and anything less than that is a liability. Because of this early imprinting, your mind may still carry messages like, if I don't speak fast, someone will talk over me. If I don't sound certain, they'll think I don't know what I'm talking about. If I don't assert myself, I'll be dismissed or forgotten. If I show emotion or hesitation, they'll walk all over me. If I'm not bold, I'll never get what I want. You might also carry guilt or shame around how you do express. So feeling like you're too blunt, too reactive, or too much, even when you're just being passionate or honest. There can be an underlying belief that you always have to be on, ready with the right comeback, the perfect idea, or the most confident delivery. That if you don't assert yourself first, there won't be space for you at all. And because Aries energy is raw and instinctive, you may also believe that your voice must come with fire to have value, when in truth, it's your presence, not your volume, that gives you authority. Now, Aries in the third house can show up in a few different ways. So you may speak quickly, even when no one's rushing you. You may edit or downplay softer emotions in conversation to appear strong. You may get anxious when someone disagrees with you, like you have to defend your intelligence or worth. You may interrupt others or yourself out of fear of being cut off or forgotten. You may avoid speaking up if you're unsure what you want to say because it feels like there's no room to figure it out. Or you may equate silence with losing, like if you don't speak first, you lose your place. You may also notice that even in relationships where people want to hear you, you feel pressure to perform. It's not that you can't speak. It's that your early environment taught you that speaking came with stakes. You might also self-identify as the direct one, the bold one, or the firecracker in your friend group, but wonder deep down if anyone actually sees your more thoughtful or sensitive sides. Reprogramming your third house in Aries starts with a radical but gentle truth. You don't need to be fast, loud, or certain to be worthy of being heard. The mental pattern here is built on urgency as identity, a sense that your voice only matters if it comes with force. But Aries in the third house is also an invitation to reclaim your natural instincts, to speak from the gut without the fear of being rejected, but also without the need to armor up. You're not here to prove your intelligence. You're here to trust your voice. The first step to achieving this is to slow down your speech on purpose. Let yourself pause. Let the first thought finish before the words form. You don't lose power when you take your time. You actually anchor it. Next is to practice expressing without defending. Say what you believe without adding because or preemptively arguing your point. You don't need to justify your perspective to deserve space. Next is to create space for doubt and discovery. Let your opinions evolve out loud. Let your voice carry curiosity, not just conclusions. Next is to reframe assertiveness. Being assertive doesn't mean being dominant. It means standing in your truth without trying to overpower anyone else's. And finally, write or record without editing. Journal or voice memo your thoughts in raw, unfiltered form. Let your mind learn that expression doesn't have to be polished to be powerful. You get to be bold without being reactive. You get to take up space without rushing. You get to say what you mean without having to armor your words in urgency or fear. A great affirmation for you having Aries in your third house is, I don't need to rush to be right. My voice is strong, even when it's still. I am allowed to speak with clarity, softness, and trust. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so be sure to let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, send this to a friend who needs it, and subscribe so you never miss an upgrade. And if you're ready to move like the main character in your life, be sure to grab my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Taurus in the third house is about reprogramming the fear of being wrong, unstable, or too much to handle. If you have Taurus in the third house, your early environment taught you that communication needed to be careful, calm, and controlled. You may have grown up in a household where stability, predictability, and being easy to deal with were highly valued. So this could have looked like conversations that avoided conflict or discomfort at all cost. Unspoken pressure to stay agreeable, pleasant, or emotionally low maintenance. Caretakers who shut down when overwhelmed or avoided emotionally charged topics. An emphasis on being polite, logical, or having it all together. Or a family system where strong opinions or sudden changes were seen as disruptive. Even if your environment wasn't emotionally cold, it may have been energetically rigid, where expressing your evolving thoughts, emotions, or needs felt inconvenient to others. You may have learned that being consistent and agreeable earned you peace, while messiness or contradiction made you a problem. As a result, your early mental identity may have formed around trying to preserve harmony, keep things emotionally stable, and avoid saying or doing anything that would make others uncomfortable. Because of this subtle but powerful conditioning, your mind might still carry beliefs like, I need to think things through before I speak. People don't like mess. It's safer to keep things neutral than to express something that might stir the pot. I shouldn't change my mind. It makes me seem flaky or unreliable. If I say the wrong thing, I'll ruin the vibe. People expect me to be calm and collected all the time. You may believe your worth comes from being easy to talk to, grounded, or reliable, and fear that any deviation from that identity will disappoint others or make them pull away. There may also be internalized shame around expressing anger, strong opinions, or emotional chaos, even when those feelings are valid. Now, this energy can show up in your life in a few different ways. So you may overthink before speaking, afraid of saying the wrong thing. You may stay quiet in group conversations, preferring to listen or keep things light. You may edit yourself to avoid being seen as dramatic, reactive, or overly emotional. You may feel anxiety around changing your mind or expressing a new idea. You may find it hard to open up about something unless you're 100% sure how you feel. Or you may avoid deep conversations unless you feel completely safe and emotionally regulated. Even when people invite you to be more open, you might feel a pressure to keep your tone measured, your ideas reasonable, and your presence low impact, as if your job is to be the grounding force for everyone else, even at the expense of your own complexity. Healing this placement is about giving yourself permission to be emotionally rich, mentally fluid, and occasionally messy. Taurus in the third house is beautiful at holding down steady thought patterns, being a calming voice, and bringing depth to communication. But it can also trap you in an identity of constancy that denies your evolving truth. Reprogramming this placement is about dismantling the belief that your value comes from being emotionally undemanding, intellectually fixed, or perpetually composed. The first step to this is to practice saying things before they're fully formed. Give yourself permission to speak from the process, not just the conclusion. Let your ideas evolve out loud. Next is to challenge the need to keep the peace. Peacekeeping often comes at the cost of truth. So ask yourself, am I staying silent because it's true for me or because it's easier for them? Next is to let your tone carry weight. Practice expressing anger, urgency, or passion in a safe space, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Next is to give yourself room to change your mind. Flexibility isn't weakness. It's a sign that you're alive, thinking, and growing. And finally, create space for emotional honesty in safe relationships. Let people hold your full range, not just the calm, steady version of you. Your voice gets to be grounded and dynamic. You are allowed to bring depth, change, and disruption into conversations without losing your value. In fact, it's what makes you trustworthy. Your truth isn't performance. It's presence. A great affirmation for you having Taurus in your third house is, I don't have to be composed to be loved. My voice is valid even when it changes. I am allowed to speak before I'm certain and still be enough. Be sure to let me know what hit home for you and drop it in the comments. And of course, be sure to hit like, send this to someone who needs this reminder, and subscribe to stay tapped in. And if you're ready to claim the version of you that doesn't settle, be sure to grab my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Gemini in the third is about reprogramming the fear of being misunderstood, scattered, or never fully seen. With Gemini ruling your third house, you were raised in a mentally busy, fast-moving environment. This could have looked like a household full of stimulation, siblings, distractions, constant talking, competing ideas, or emotional inconsistency. Or it may have been a quieter environment where curiosity wasn't deeply engaged, and you learned to rely on your mind to stay connected or entertained. Either way, your early programming said, be interesting, be adaptable, stay mentally on. You may have absorbed early on that your intelligence or charm was what made you valuable. You might have been praised for being witty, quick or clever, but not necessarily understood at a deeper level. Inconsistency may have been the theme, not just in people, but in attention. You could have felt like your voice was welcomed when it was light, funny, or useful, but met with silence or discomfort when it was vulnerable, repetitive, or raw. So you learned to shapeshift, to stay sharp, to entertain, adapt, or distract. Because somewhere deep inside, you may have believed, if I don't keep their attention, I'll lose my connection. From this, you may still believe, if I stop talking, I'll disappear. People only like me when I'm light and easy to be around. My worth depends on how interesting or smart I sound. If I don't adapt to others, I'll be rejected. No one really sees the whole me, just the version that's convenient. If I say too much, I'll be annoying. If I say too little, I'll be forgotten. You may carry the belief that your voice has to be filtered, curated, or always one step ahead to be accepted. That being too repetitive, too emotional, or too scattered will make people tune you out. Your early environment taught you how to stay mentally agile, but may have also made you doubt your right to take up space without performing. This placement can show up in your life in a few different ways. So you may talk in circles or overshare because silence feels unsafe. You may struggle to stay with one idea or commit to one truth because you're always editing or second guessing. You may read between the lines constantly, scanning for tone shifts, mood changes, or hidden meaning. You may feel pressure to be the funny one or smart one in a conversation. You may hide behind facts, jokes, or stories instead of speaking vulnerably. You may intellectualize emotions to avoid feeling or expressing them directly. You may overthink text, convos, and interactions, then replay them later, wondering if you said too much or too little. You may even bounce between identities, depending on who you're with, because you were never shown that it was safe to just be, even when that version of you is quiet, uncertain, or deep. The healing with this placement is about anchoring your voice in your truth, not your performance. Gemini in the third house means your mind is brilliantly wired to observe, translate, and communicate. But it doesn't mean you have to keep shifting or spinning to stay valuable. You are not here to be a mental acrobat for other people's comfort. You're here to trust that your ideas, your presence, and your whole mind are enough without needing to impress, entertain, or adapt. The first step to achieving this is practice stillness in conversation. Let silences happen. Let them be awkward. See what wants to rise when you're not rushing to fill space. Next is to speak from presence, not performance. Instead of planning the perfect thing to say. Let your words come from what's actually alive in the moment. Next is to keep a mind honesty journal. Each day, write what you really think or feel without trying to sound smart, spiritual, or put together. Let your truth be messy. Next is to notice when you self-edit. So ask, who am I becoming in this moment, and why? And finally, let repetition be sacred. Say the same thing twice if you need to. You don't have to be new or novel to be worthy of attention. Your magic isn't in saying the right thing. It's in letting your voice carry the real thing. A great affirmation for your Gemini-ruled third house is, I am allowed to take up space without explaining. I don't have to perform to stay connected. My voice is enough, just as it is. Be sure to let me know what clicked for you and drop it in the comments below. And of course, be sure to pass this along to your friends and subscribe so you stay aligned with the vibe. And if you're ready to move like the main character in your life, be sure to grab my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Cancer in the third is about reprogramming the fear that your feelings make you hard to love. With Cancer ruling your third house, your earliest experiences with communication and learning were deeply emotional and energetic. You didn't just hear words. You absorbed the tone, the tension, the silence, the unsaid. You read between the lines before you even knew how to read. Your childhood environment likely taught you that feelings were implied but rarely named, that certain emotions made you too sensitive, dramatic, or a burden, that moods shifted quickly, so you had to tiptoe to stay safe, that you are responsible for keeping the peace, even as a child, that expressing your inner world often led to being dismissed or ignored. You may have learned early on that your emotional perception made others uncomfortable. So instead of being encouraged to ask questions, speak openly, or express what you really felt, you may have learned to swallow your truth to keep the connection intact. In other words, if I say how I feel, I might lose love. If I reveal too much, they'll pull away. This may have led you to believe, I need to sugarcoat what I say so people don't take it the wrong way. If I cry or get emotional, they'll stop listening. No one really wants to hear what I feel. They just want me to be okay. If I'm too honest, I'll make things worse. My needs are too much. It's safer to be the one who listens, supports, and stays quiet. You might hold the belief that your mind is too tender, your words too emotional or your presence too needy to be fully received. And because Cancer is so attuned to the energy of others, you may have taken on emotional responsibility that was never yours to carry. There can also be guilt around being seen. Like if you speak your truth, you're taking up space that someone else needs more. This energy can show up in your life in a few different ways. So you may say things in a soft, roundabout way, hoping people just get it. You may struggle to speak up when something hurts you. You may downplay your needs in conversation to avoid being seen as too much. You may carry the emotional tone of the room, even when it overwhelms you. You may feel like you have to emotionally prepare to talk about hard things. You may fear being misunderstood, so you stay silent and overthink instead. And you're deeply articulate in writing, but you may struggle to say things aloud when you're upset. You may find yourself stuck in a mental loop of needing to protect everyone's emotions while silently resenting that no one protects yours. It's not that you don't have a voice. It's that your early environment made you question whether using it was worth the emotional risk. Healing this placement is about learning that your truth doesn't need to be filtered to be valid, that your emotional language isn't a liability, it's your superpower. Cancer in the third house means you carry a mind that feels deeply, and your voice was never meant to be neutral. It was meant to be honest. Reprogramming this placement means releasing the belief that emotional safety requires silence. It means reclaiming the right to express, even if your words tremble. The first step to achieving this is to use your writing as a bridge. If speaking feels too vulnerable, begin by journaling or writing letters to practice naming your emotional experience. Next is to speak even when your voice shakes. Don't wait for the perfect moment or emotional neutrality. Let your truth come through, raw if it needs to be. Next is to name your emotions in real time. Instead of, I'm fine, say, I feel overwhelmed and unsure how to say this, but I want to try. Let naming be the first step. Next is to let go of protecting everyone else. You're not responsible for how others feel about your truth. It's not your job to make your feelings easier to hear. And finally, practice emotional directness. Soft doesn't mean vague. You can be gentle and clear. You can be vulnerable and firm. Your voice deserves to be heard in the exact tone it naturally carries. You're not too sensitive, you're attuned. You're not too much, you're real. And your story doesn't need to be edited for someone else's comfort. A great affirmation for your third house in Cancer is, My feelings deserve a voice. I don't have to be quiet to be loved. I speak with softness, honesty, and trust in my own truth. If this stirred something in you, say so in the comments. I want to hear it. And of course, be sure to like, send this to a friend who needs it, and subscribe so you never miss what's next. And if you're ready to step into your upgraded timeline, be sure to grab my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Leo in your third house is about reprogramming the fear that your voice doesn't shine bright enough. If Leo rules your third house, your early communication environment carried a subtle or loud pressure around performance, approval, and likability. You may have grown up in a household, school, or sibling dynamic where attention was a currency, and being noticed meant being praised, and being invisible meant being forgotten. There may have been an unspoken hierarchy of who got to speak or be heard. Family members who dominated conversations or needed the spotlight. A culture of comparison. Who was the funniest, the smartest, the most articulate? Pressure to appear confident, cheerful, or well-spoken, even when you weren't. Or praise that was conditional. Say it nicely. Don't be dramatic. Be impressive. This created an early mental imprint that your voice had to be charming, useful, or entertaining to deserve attention. You may have been the bright one, the talkative one, or the quiet observer. But either way, you felt like your value in conversation came from how well you performed a version of yourself that was pleasing or impressive to others. Underneath it all was the fear. If I'm not magnetic, I'll be ignored. If I shine too bright, I'll be resented. This may have caused you to believe, if I don't sound confident, people won't respect me. If I express something too personal, I'll ruin my image. They like the version of me that's upbeat. Don't ruin it. There's no point in speaking unless I say something impressive. People get jealous when I speak up, so it's safer to tone it down. I have to prove I'm unique every time I open my mouth. You may carry the belief that your voice only matters when it's polished, confident, or celebrated. That there's pressure to inspire, entertain, or lead every time you speak, or you risk being dismissed. Alternatively, if your voice was overshadowed by louder family members or classmates, you may have learned to dim yourself to avoid comparison, rejection, or competition. There can also be internal guilt around wanting to be heard, like claiming your voice is somehow selfish or attention-seeking. So this energy can show up in your life in a few different ways. So you may feel pressure to sound confident even when you're unsure. You may second guess your voice in groups if you're not the most put together one there. You may hide your struggles to protect your image of strength. You may feel unfulfilled when others don't affirm or notice what you said. You may perform socially, funny, polished, engaging, then feel empty afterward. You may tone yourself down around people who feel competitive or judgmental. And you may crave to be deeply seen for who you really are, but fear it won't be enough. This placement can trap you between the desire to be fully expressed and the fear of being too much, too dramatic, or too self-centered. You may avoid expressing your real thoughts if they don't feel bright enough, and secretly wonder if anyone sees the real you beneath the charisma. Healing this placement is about learning that your voice is worthy without the performance, that your brilliance isn't in your delivery, it's in your presence. Leo in the third house carries a natural magnetism, but it doesn't need to be curated. It just needs to be honest. You're not here to impress. You're here to express. The first step to achieving this is to speak without polishing. Say things as they are, not as they should sound. Let your humanity come through. Next is to name what's real, even if it's messy. You don't need to be cheerful, confident, or wise all the time. Let your voice reflect your full range. Next is to reclaim your need to be seen. Wanting to be heard is not selfish. It's sacred. Let yourself crave connection without shame. Next is to practice sharing when you're not the expert. You don't need to lead the room to belong in it. Let your questions be as powerful as your answers. And finally, speak for impact, not applause. Ask yourself, am I saying this to connect or to be validated? Let the motive shift toward authenticity. Your voice doesn't need to sparkle to be worthy. You shine when you speak from your center, not your script. A great affirmation for your Leo-ruled third house is, I don't need to impress to be heard. My voice is radiant when it's real. I am seen even in my softness. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so be sure to let me know in the comments. And of course, if this spoke to you, be sure to like it, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to stay in the vibe. And if you're ready to flow into the timeline that's already aligned for you, be sure to grab my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Virgo in the third house is about reprogramming the fear that you'll say the wrong thing. If you have Virgo ruling your third house, you likely grew up in a mental environment centered around perfection, correctness, and high standards. Communication in your early life may have revolved around being precise, polite or appropriate, avoiding mistakes at all cost, being useful, prepared, and helpful, being evaluated, corrected, or compared, being praised for being smart, mature, or self-contained. You may have internalized early on that your mind needed to be sharp and orderly to earn approval, and that messiness, confusion, or emotion were signs of weakness. Maybe you were the responsible one, the one who knew what to do, who paid attention, who didn't need much help. Or maybe you were treated like you were always almost good enough, but not quite. This taught you, if I'm not precise, I'll be corrected. If I'm not helpful, I'm a burden. If I'm not smart, I'm invisible. So you may have learned to monitor everything: your words, tone, body language, timing. Communication became a performance of excellence. And internally, you likely developed a voice that critiques before you even finish a sentence. This may have led you to believe, if I'm not useful, I'm irrelevant. If I don't know what I'm talking about, I shouldn't say anything at all. If I say something wrong, I'll be judged or dismissed. There's no room for error. I have to think it through first. People only value me when I'm the one with the answers. If I speak before I'm ready, I'll look foolish. You might believe that your words need to be tidy, correct, and composed before they're worth sharing. You may fear interrupting, over-explaining, or wasting people's time by not being clear or brief enough. You might second-guess yourself endlessly, not because you don't have anything to say, but because you believe it's not refined enough to be valid. There can also be a deep inner critic that holds your mind hostage with constant should haves and not good enoughs. The energy of this placement can show up in a few different ways. So you may self-edit in real time, constantly adjusting mid-sentence. You may over-explain or under-explain, then feel anxious afterwards. You may obsess over how your emails, text, or post sound. You may delay speaking until you are absolutely sure what to say. You may freeze or panic when asked something you didn't prepare for. You may apologize before expressing yourself, just in case it wasn't right. You may over-identify with being put together, even when you're falling apart. Even simple conversations can feel mentally exhausting because you're running every word through an invisible checklist of correctness, tone, timing, and usefulness. Healing this placement is about reclaiming the right to be imperfect and in process. Virgo in the third house gifts you with an incredible mind, analytical, observant, articulate, but it doesn't mean your voice has to earn its place. You're not here to be a flawless communicator. You're here to express your truth, even when it's messy, uncertain, or incomplete. The first step to achieving this is to practice speaking before you're ready. Say it even if it's not polished. Let good enough be enough. Next is to catch the inner critic mid-thought. Pause and ask, whose voice is this? Is it true or just familiar? Next is to give yourself permission to ramble. Not every thought needs to be optimized. Some truths are found through the mess. Next is to stop apologizing for existing. Remove disclaimers like, sorry, this might not make sense, or I don't know if this is important, but. And finally, reframe your worth. You are valuable even when you're uncertain, even when you're not helpful, even when you're still figuring it out. Your brilliance isn't in always being right. It's in being real. You heal when you stop aiming to perfect your thoughts and start letting them live. A great affirmation for your Virgo-ruled third house is, I don't need to be perfect to be heard. My words are enough, even when they're raw. I trust my voice, even when it's still forming. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so be sure to let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, pass this along to your friends, and subscribe so you stay aligned with the vibe. And if you're done playing small with your power, be sure to grab my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Libra in the third house is about reprogramming the fear that honesty will ruin the relationship. If you have Libra in the third house, your early environment likely taught you that peace is more important than truth. Whether through explicit modeling or unspoken cues, you may have learned that keeping others comfortable was your responsibility, and that expressing your full mind could cause imbalance, conflict, or rejection. So this could have looked like avoiding heavy conversations to keep the mood light, learning to play mediator between caregivers or siblings, picking up on tone shifts and adjusting your words to keep others at ease, being praised for being polite, agreeable, or emotionally neutral, feeling like it was too much to express your real preferences, complaints, or ideas. You might have been taught directly or indirectly. Good communication means keeping things smooth. Your truth should always be delivered gently or not at all. It's better to be well liked than fully known. So you became attuned to everyone else's needs, constantly editing your voice to maintain balance. Your mind learned to negotiate rather than express. This might have led you to believe, if I'm too direct, I'll push people away. If I disagree, they'll stop liking me. Being liked is safer than being honest. People can't handle my truth, so I should soften or shrink it. If I speak up, I'll come off as rude, dramatic, or selfish. It's easier to just go along with what others want. You may fear that your truth will disturb the dynamic or make things awkward. So you default to silence, compromise, or passive phrasing. You might also struggle to identify your own opinions clearly because you spent so long considering everyone else's first. There can be internal conflict between wanting to be heard authentically and fearing the consequences of full expression. This energy can show up in your life in a few different ways. So you may avoid direct confrontation, even when you're deeply frustrated. You may stay silent when you disagree, then resent it later. You may express your truth only after editing it for softness or palatability. You may over-apologize or use people-pleasing language in text or conversations. You may constantly weigh how your words might affect others, even in low-stakes moments. You may feel torn between being real and being liked. You may end up feeling invisible in conversations, not because you have nothing to say, but because you're trying so hard not to offend, disrupt, or disappoint. This can lead to built-up resentment, energetic depletion, or a chronic feeling that people only know the pleasing version of you. Healing this placement is about liberating your voice from the fear of disapproval. Libra in the third house is gifted at understanding multiple perspectives, reading social cues, and creating harmony. But harmony built on suppression is not real peace. Reprogramming this placement means learning to value honesty over comfort. It means allowing your words to carry weight, clarity, and boundaries. The first step to achieving this is to speak before you're ready to sound perfect. Don't wait to make it nice. Say it real. Next is to let people feel what they feel. You're not responsible for managing their reactions to your truth. Next is to practice saying, "I disagree," without explanation. You don't owe a justification for your preferences. Next is to get honest about what you want, even if it's different, even if it changes things, even if it's not convenient. And finally, reclaim your voice in conflict. Assertiveness isn't aggression. You can be firm and fair, soft and strong. You don't have to shrink your truth to keep the peace. Let your words be a reflection of your full self, not just the version you think they'll like. A great affirmation for your Libra-ruled third house is, I don't need to be agreeable to be loved. I speak with clarity and courage. My truth belongs in every room I enter. Be sure to let me know what clicked for you and drop it in the comments below. And of course, be sure to like, send this to your friends who need it, and subscribe so you never miss an upgrade. And if you're tired of the self-help spiral and just want real results, be sure to grab my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Scorpio in the third house is about reprogramming the fear that speaking up will cost you everything. If Scorpio rules your third house, your early communication environment likely felt emotionally intense, secretive, or psychologically unsafe. Words may have been loaded with subtext. Silence may have carried more weight than what was said, and emotional truths were likely met with resistance, punishment, or weaponization. This could have looked like being silenced, shut down, or ignored when you spoke up. Feeling like you had to keep the peace by not revealing too much. Being punished for exposing uncomfortable truths. Being manipulated, guilted, or emotionally overwhelmed in conversations. Sensing things others wouldn't acknowledge and internalizing the shame of it. Your mind learned early on, truth is dangerous. If I say what I really think, I'll be punished or abandoned. My voice can't be trusted or believed. It's safer to stay hidden. It's smarter to say nothing. In homes with trauma, addiction, betrayal, or deep emotional avoidance, Scorpio in the third often becomes the child who knows too much too soon and learns that knowledge is both a burden and a weapon. So you stayed quiet, or sharp, or strategic, because letting your guard down didn't feel like a wise option. This may have led you to believe, if I say this, I'll lose the relationship. It's safer to be mysterious than vulnerable. My truth is too dark or complicated for people to handle. If I open up, they'll use it against me. People only want the surface version of me. I have to control the conversation to protect myself. You may still believe that transparency equals danger, that showing too much of your inner world will make you weak, exposed, or rejected. There's often a deep-rooted belief that words have consequences that can't be undone. So silence becomes your armor, and suspicion becomes your filter. The energy of this placement may show up for you in a few different ways. So you may stay quiet even when something deeply matters to you. You may withhold the truth out of fear it will be misunderstood or twisted. You may share selectively, but later resent people for not getting the full you. You may test people's trust before revealing anything real. You may fear losing control of your emotions mid-conversation, so you avoid it altogether. You may intellectualize pain or use sarcasm to mask vulnerability. You may carry secrets you've never spoken aloud, even to people you trust. There's often a deep longing to be seen for who you really are, but also a belief that true safety can only come through control. And control, for you, often begins with silence. Healing this placement is about learning that your truth can liberate, not just destroy. Scorpio in the third house holds powerful insight, but when that insight is buried underneath fear and suppression, it turns inward as anxiety, resentment, or emotional isolation. You were not meant to be the emotional gatekeeper forever. You are here to speak alchemy, to turn your inner knowing into healing for yourself and for others. The first step to achieving this is to start with safe micro-truths. Let yourself say the thing you usually avoid, even if your voice shakes. Next is to recognize emotional manipulation patterns and step out of them. Your truth does not owe anyone comfort or protection. Next is to notice when your silence is self-protective versus self-abandoning. Is this a boundary or fear? Next is to reclaim emotional language. You don't have to hide behind sarcasm or analysis. Let real feeling into your words. And finally, speak what you were never allowed to name. Let it leave your body. Shame dissolves when truth is aired. Your words are sacred. Your voice is powerful. And your truth is not too much. It's just been waiting for the right conditions to rise. A great affirmation for your Scorpio-ruled third house is, my truth is safe with me. I speak to heal, not to harm. My voice is a channel for power, depth, and rebirth. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so definitely let me know in the comments. And of course, if this spoke to you, be sure to like it, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to stay in the vibe. And if you're done playing small with your power, be sure to grab my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you. And thanks so much for watching. Sagittarius in the third house is about reprogramming the fear that your thoughts don't matter unless they're right. If Sagittarius rules your third house, your early environment was likely shaped by big opinions, fixed beliefs, or loud convictions. You may have been surrounded by people who knew best, who spoke with certainty, who expected alignment with their worldview, and didn't always leave room for nuance or dissent. This could have looked like being raised in a religious, political, or ideological household where belief equated belonging. Being told what to think more than how to think. Having your curiosity dismissed as naive or rebellious. Being mocked or silenced when your perspective didn't match the group. Growing up with intellectual arrogance, judgment, or moral superiority in the air. So even if you were curious, questioning, or imaginative, you may have learned, don't challenge the system. just agree. My thoughts only matter if they're backed up with proof. If I don't sound confident, I'll be dismissed. Speaking up means I'll be corrected, lectured, or shamed. Your mind may have learned to crave freedom of thought while simultaneously feeling unsafe to explore it. You were born to ask why, but were often met with, because I said so. This may have led you to believe, if I can't explain it perfectly, I'll sound stupid. People will think I'm wrong, or worse, naive. I should already know the answer before I speak. No one wants to hear me process out loud. If I change my mind later, I'll look fake or flaky. I need to sound educated, articulate, or in the know, or keep quiet. You may still carry the subconscious belief that your thoughts are only valid when they're polished, proven, or persuasive. That if you don't have certainty or a clear philosophy, you should stay quiet. And you may battle with imposter syndrome when sharing your ideas, even though they are deeply insightful and expansive. This often hides the deeper fear. If I express something different, I'll be exiled. This energy can show up in your life in a few different ways. So you may question yourself after sharing a new idea or opinion. You may research endlessly before saying something publicly. You may avoid debates even when you disagree. You may default to the beliefs of others to keep the peace. You may struggle to speak in real time without sounding overly rehearsed or overthinking it later. You may downplay your curiosity or humor to sound more credible. And you may feel stuck between knowing a lot and still fearing you don't know enough. There's a strong craving to speak with wisdom, but also a fear of being wrong, misinterpreted, or laughed at. So you over-prepare, you filter, or you keep it all to yourself, afraid your ideas won't land unless they're fully formed. Healing this placement is about learning that your mind doesn't need to be certain to be valuable. Sagittarius in the third house was born to question, explore, shift, and evolve. And that journey is meant to be spoken out loud, not hidden behind right answers. Your communication is meant to be curious, not final, insightful, not infallible. You don't need to speak like a professor. You're allowed to sound like a human being in process. The first step to achieving this is to let yourself speak from wonder, not authority. So you can say, I've been thinking about, or what if, and release the pressure to prove. Next is to give yourself permission to change your mind publicly That's not weakness. It's growth. Next is to practice expressing thoughts before you know enough. Clarity often comes through articulation. Next is to play with tone. So let humor, curiosity, and storytelling come through your voice. You don't need to sound serious to be taken seriously. And finally, trust that your voice expands the room. Even if it doesn't sound like the smartest one there, it adds something real. You are here to ignite minds, not impress them. Speak like you're exploring, not like you've arrived. A great affirmation for your Sagittarius ruled third house is, my thoughts are valid, even when they're evolving. I don't need to be right to be real. My voice creates space for new truths. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so be sure to let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, send this to a friend who needs it, and subscribe so you never miss an upgrade. And if you've been waiting for a sign, hi, it's me. So be sure to grab my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Capricorn in the third house is about reprogramming the fear that your voice must always be in control. If Capricorn rules your third house, you likely grew up in an environment where communication felt serious, limited, or weighed down by responsibility. You may have learned early on that words weren't for play, emotion, or free exploration. They were tools for function, discipline, or survival. So this could have looked like being expected to grow up fast and speak like an adult, feeling pressure to be logical, composed, or solution-oriented, living in a home where silence was normal, emotions were inconvenient, or vulnerability was shut down, receiving love when you were mature, reasonable, or quiet, being the one who had to stay strong or hold it together for others. You likely internalize messages like, don't talk back, be useful, not emotional, there's no time for games, just get it done. Nobody wants to hear your complaints. Don't be a burden. Keep it together. In homes marked with instability, emotional neglect, or high standards, this placement learns to monitor their tone and minimize their needs. You became the responsible communicator, the one who filters, condenses, or speaks only when necessary. But beneath that maturity was often a silenced child. So this may have led you to still believe, if I don't sound composed, I'll lose respect. People don't want to hear my emotions, just my solutions. If I can't fix it, I shouldn't talk about it. Expressing too much makes me look weak or childish. I need to prove I'm useful before I speak. There's no room for softness, just strategy. You may still believe that communication has to be measured, efficient, and emotionally contained. That your voice isn't for processing, it's for presenting. So you bite your tongue, you self-edit, you intellectualize what hurts. You speak to protect your image, not to reveal your truth. And maybe somewhere deep inside, you fear that if you were fully honest, it would all come spilling out and you wouldn't know how to stop. The energy of this placement can show up in a few different ways. So you may sound calm and capable, even when you're overwhelmed. You may suppress emotions until they erupt in private. You may struggle to ask for help or admit when you're struggling. You may default to being the strong one in every conversation. You may judge yourself for speaking before having a solution. You may avoid vulnerability in communication unless it's earned. And you may carry tension in your throat or jaw from unspoken pressure. There's often a split. Your outer voice is cool, reliable, respected, but your inner voice is tired, silenced, and craving softness. Healing this placement is about learning that you don't need to sound strong to be safe. Capricorn in the third house carries a wise, grounded, and powerful voice, but that doesn't mean it always has to be perfectly managed. You're allowed to speak without a plan. You're allowed to say, I don't know. You're allowed to need comfort, not just solutions. The first step to healing this placement is to practice messy conversations. Say what's real before it's polished or on brand. Next is to let softness into your language. Speak without filtering everything through logic. Let emotion be present, even if it's raw. Next is to reclaim your right to vent. You don't need to earn space to speak. You're allowed to express without fixing. Next is to ask for support, even if you're the strong one. Let others hold you too. And finally, speak your needs clearly. Your requests don't make you weak. They make you whole. You don't have to sound unshakable to be worthy. Your voice gets to be human, not just heroic. A great affirmation for your Capricorn-ruled third house is, I don't need to be perfect to be heard. My voice is safe, even when it's soft. I speak with truth, not performance. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so definitely let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, share this with your friends, and subscribe so you never miss an upgrade. And if you are ready to align with the version of you that actually gets what they want, be sure to grab my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you. And thanks so much for watching. Aquarius in the third house is about reprogramming the fear that your mind is too different to belong. If Aquarius rules your third house, your early environment likely conditioned you to believe that your mind was either too much or not enough. You may have had original, outside-the-box thoughts as a child, only to be met with blank stares, corrections, or emotional disconnection. This could have looked like being labeled weird, too smart, too quiet, or too different. Having interests that others didn't understand or value. Feeling emotionally disconnected from your siblings, classmates, or caretakers. Being ignored or excluded when you shared your ideas. Getting praised for your intellect, but discouraged from being emotional. You likely learned early on, people don't get me. If I want to belong, I have to edit who I am. If I speak up, I'll be misunderstood or rejected. Nobody really listens unless I say what they want to hear. I'm safest when I'm detached and observing. The emotional tone of your childhood may have felt mentally stimulating but emotionally distant, or the opposite, emotionally charged but intellectually stifling. Either way, you didn't feel fully mirrored, so your mind became both your shield and your secret world. Because of this, you may still believe, if I express myself fully, I'll be misunderstood. People don't want to hear my real thoughts. They want something familiar. I'm too different to relate to anyone. I need to tone myself down to be accepted. No one wants to go as deep or as wide as I do, so why bother? My intelligence is the only acceptable thing about me. You may still carry the belief that your voice doesn't fit the room, that you need to over-explain, translate, or package your ideas to make them palatable. Or you might default to detachment, watching, analyzing, saying very little, because you assume no one would get the real you anyway. This often results in brilliant thoughts kept secret and connection that stays surface level. The energy of this placement can show up in a few different ways. So you may downplay your unique ideas so others won't feel uncomfortable. You may struggle to find your people who actually get your mind. You may over-intellectualize and undershare your emotional truth. You may filter your communication through logic and wit, but hide vulnerability. You may fear being too much or not enough in every conversation. You may question if your voice has a place, even when you know you're on to something powerful. You may speak in ways that seem clear to you, but leave others confused. Or you might say nothing at all, afraid of being misunderstood or dismissed. Either way, The pain comes from being unheard, not because you lack clarity, but because you fear there's no space for your full, unedited brilliance. Healing here is learning that your originality is a gift, not a liability. Aquarius in the third house is here to disrupt stale ideas, bring in higher insight, and speak the future into the present. But it's also here to reclaim emotional connection through communication. You don't have to water yourself down to be understood. You don't have to hide your truth just because others don't immediately relate. Your voice doesn't need to fit the mold. It is the new mold. The first step to achieving this is to let your ideas be raw and real. Stop translating your brilliance into normal language. Say it how it comes through you. Next is to practice connecting through vulnerability, not just intellect. Speak your heart, not just your mind. Next is to notice where you emotionally disconnect in conversations. Do you shut down when you're not understood? Can you stay open instead? Next is to find your people. You don't need to convince the masses. Just call in the ones who resonate. And finally, speak like you belong, because you do. Your voice adds dimension to every room it enters. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You need to be true to yourself. A great affirmation for your Aquarius-ruled third house is, my voice is worthy, even when it's different. I don't shrink my truth to fit in. I speak it to stand tall. My mind belongs exactly as it is. Be sure to let me know what clicked for you and drop it in the comments below. And of course, be sure to like, share this with your friends who need it, and subscribe so you never miss an upgrade. And if you're ready to follow the nudge that brought you here, be sure to grab my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Pisces in the third house is about reprogramming the fear that your voice is too sensitive, scattered, or unreal. If Pisces rules your third house, you were likely raised in an environment where communication was unclear, inconsistent, or emotionally charged. Words may have been elusive or overwhelming. Conversations may have lacked clarity or direction, and emotional undercurrents were always present, even when unspoken. This could have looked like growing up around people who didn't explain themselves clearly or who changed their tone often. Feeling like you had to guess what people meant instead of being told directly. Taking on the emotional tone of the room without knowing how to process it. Getting labeled as too dreamy, too sensitive, or not paying attention. Using imagination, fantasy, or daydreaming as an escape from confusing or harsh environments. You may have internalized, My words don't make sense. No one understands how I think. I have to absorb what others feel to stay safe. It's easier to disappear into my own world than to speak up. If I express my inner world, I'll sound crazy, childish, or naive. So you withdrew, or you adapted to everyone else's frequency. You may have learned to communicate through feeling, energy, or silence more than through structured words. And that adaptation kept you safe, but also diluted your sense of voice. This may have led you to believe no one will understand what I'm trying to say. I talk in circles. I should just stay quiet. I'm too emotional to express myself clearly. My thoughts are too abstract to be useful. If I speak up, I'll be judged or misunderstood. I need to simplify myself to be taken seriously. You may still carry the belief that your mind is somehow less linear, less articulate, or less valuable than others. That your voice is too soft, too whimsical, or too emotional to be respected. You might silence yourself out of fear that others will be confused, or worse, condescending. There can be a deep inner ache that says, I have something important to say, but I don't know how to say it without losing people. Having Pisces in the third house can show up in your life in a few different ways. So you may trail off when speaking because you second guess how it's landing. You may default to poetic, soft, or vague language instead of directness. You might abandon thoughts mid-conversation when someone doesn't immediately get it. You may feel emotionally overloaded in busy, stimulating environments. You may use spiritual, artistic, or metaphoric language to express yourself, but worry that it makes you sound spacey or unserious. You may long for deeper, more intuitive conversations, but often settle for surface ones. This placement often manifests as having profound inner wisdom, but struggling to ground it into words. You might seem quiet or dreamy on the outside, but your inner world is rich, psychic, and full of nuance. You're not scattered. You're swimming in multiple layers of meaning. Healing this placement is about learning that your voice is valid, even when it drifts, dreams, or dissolves the rules of language. Pisces in the third house communicates through feeling, rhythm, art, and intuition. Your words may not follow traditional structure, but they carry soul. You don't need to speak like a textbook to be understood. You need to speak like you. The first step to achieving this is to give yourself space to speak slowly, intuitively, and with softness. Your rhythm is part of your medicine. Next is to write, voice memo, or create when you can't find words. Your voice may show up more easily through poetic, spiritual, or artistic forms. Next is to trust that the right people will feel you beyond the words. You're not here to be perfectly understood by everyone. Next is to practice grounding before you speak. A moment of breath can help translate your emotional knowing into language. Next is to release the need to sound clear all the time. You can speak in spirals, metaphors, or symbols. It's still real. And finally, reframe sensitivity as a strength. Your perceptions are a superpower, not a flaw. You are not too soft. You are not too vague. You are a vessel for meaning that transcends logic. And that's exactly why your voice is needed. A great affirmation for your Pisces ruled third house is, I don't need to speak perfectly to speak powerfully. My softness holds wisdom. My voice is sacred, just as it is. Be sure to let me know how this resonated with you and drop it in the comments below. And of course, be sure to like, send this to your friends, and subscribe so you stay aligned with the vibe. And if you're ready to invest in your highest timeline, like it's a non-negotiable, be sure to grab my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching.